My name's Stonesy Boy, and welcome back to Reading with Stonesy, where today we are continuing on reading 1:35 a.m., page 21 to 40. Alright, so let's begin. One was closed. Delilah aimed toward the second open dumpster, and she swung Ella in an arc. Releasing Ella's hand in an apex of the curve, Ella flew through the intermittent precipitation and landed in the reverberating metallic thud in one of the open dumpsters. Delilah winced at the little sound, feeling guilty for tossing out the doll that looked just like her baby, a doll with surprisingly real feeling hands. Delilah didn't see which dumpster Ella landed in because Nate appeared in the diner's back doorway. Delilah waved at him. "You late because you were playing with your dolly?" he called out. "Very funny." Delilah ran toward the diner and reached the door, and the raindrops turned into rain sheets. Nate stepped back to let her by, then closed the door on what was now a downpour. Delilah got a whiff of Nate's aftershave, a subtle scent of whiskey, which he was incorrectly proud of. "Manly, don't you think?" he asked when the first time he tried the new product. Delilah had to admit it was. Defying the stereotype of the typical diner owner, Nate was tall, fit, good-looking, and well-groomed. About 50, he was short, graying black hair and tidy, and a tidy, close-trimmed beard. He also had pewter gray eyes and could impale you with displeasure. He was aiming those eyes at Delilah now. "You're lucky you're one of the good. You're good, and the customers love you," he said. "But you need to get a handle on your tardiness. I can't let you slide forever." I know, I'm trying. That you are." Delilah's shift went quickly. It was upside the working the 2 to 10. The rush would kick your butt, but at least time flew by. Delilah got back to her apartment around 10:30 p.m. Thankfully, missing one of Mary's goodnight songs, the building was pretty quiet. All Delilah could hear was rap music coming from one of the apartments at the end of the hall, and a sound of laughter coming from a TV on the floor above. Closing her door on what smelled like burned Brussels sprouts, Delilah hopped in an anxious odor wouldn't follow her, and it didn't. Her apartment smelled like pine cleaner and oranges. It smelled better than Delilah, who smelled like grease, and as always did at the end of the shift. Peeling off her clothes, she deposited them inside the setter chest that sat by her door. The chest, combined with the charcoal air purifying bag tucked inside of it, solved the grease smell problem she had for weeks when she first got the diner job. In the shower, Delilah washed off the rest of the grease smell and then pulled on a red long-sleeved nightshirt and settled in bed for a half container of beef stroganoff and green beans. The cook who worked the 2 to 10 shift was the best one Nate had. The stroganoff was great, and while she ate, Delilah watched a rerun of a comedy show on the old TV sitting on top of her antique maple dresser. The show didn't make her laugh. It didn't even make her smile. It just helped her feel less lonely while she ate. Aww. Around 11:30 p.m., Delilah set her empty styrofoam container atop a pile of home decor magazines on her nightstand. She turned off her ginger lamp and curled up on her side. The street lights that hovered her parking lot outside cast sinister, distorted shadows throughout her room. They looked like giant bony fingers reaching toward the bed. Delilah closed her eyes and willed sleep to come quickly, which it did. It ended just as quickly. Delilah's eyes shot open. Her non-alarm clock lit face told her it was 1:35 a.m. She sat up and looked around. What had awakened her? Looking toward her window, she rubbed her eyes. It had been a sound, some kind of intrusive sound coming from outside her window. Had it been a ringing sound? A buzzing sound? Delilah tilted her head, listening. She could hear nothing but a whoosh of cars on the road. She looked back at the clock. It was now 1:36 a.m. Wait, she had awoken at 1:35 a.m. She set the doll's alarm for 1:35. What if she missed the AM/PM settings? "Oops," she whispered. "Sorry, Ella." Delilah thought about going outside to retrieve the possibly still working doll, so she... Delilah thought about going outside to retrieve the possibly still working doll, but she was too tired. She looked in the morning. Delilah smuggled under her covers and went back to sleep. "You threw it away?" Harper drew her chin, raised an eyebrow, and quirked her mouth in her "what were you thinking" expression. "I thought it was broken." "Yeah, but could it be a collectible?" "But it could be worth something. Harper's huge blue eyes lit up with the idea of dollar signs. Delilah's could almost see a calculator totaling imaginary amounts in Harper's mind. Delilah and Harper sat at an elevated round table in Harper's favorite espresso place. Delilah sipped cinnamon tea. Harper was drinking some type of fancy quadruple espresso. Harper was addicted to coffee. The espresso place was brick-walled, narrow space with lots of stainless steel and chrome and a little wood. Just before 11 a.m., it wasn't very crowded. A dark-skinned woman with pigtails sat at one table, concentrating on whatever was on her laptop, and an elderly man munched on a muffin while reading the paper. Behind the counter, machines fizzed and spit. Haven't I taught you anything? Harper asked. Always try to sell it before you toss it, remember? I was late for work and I was a little stressed. You need to learn to meditate. Then I'd miss work because I got lost in meditation. Harper laughed, and everyone in the place turned to look at her. Harper's laugh was like a resounding sea lion bark. You could tell how funny she thought something was by the number of barks. Delilah's comment warranted just one. How do you like the new play? Delilah asked. It's yippee fun. My lines are all crap, but I love my character. Delilah smiled. Harper had been Delilah's best friend for about 6 years, ever since the two girls landed in foster care together. Determined that the foster home would be their last, they teamed up to help each other survive the regimented structure imposed by Gerald, the ex-military husband of the couple who'd taken them in. Whenever Gerald admonished them on hearing the schedule, reminding them that it had to happen at 0500 and that had to happen at 0610, Harper would mumble something like, "You can jump off a cliff at screw you 100." She made Delilah laugh, which helped her survive. Complete opposites in both looks, personality, Harper and Delilah probably would have never been friends if they had been thrown into scheduling hell together. However, they made their friendship work when Harper announced their mischievous plan for getting a famous playwright to class in their place. Delilah just said, "Be safe," when Delilah said she was going to marry her knight in shining armor and have babies. Harper just said, "Don't sign a prenup," but Harper followed Delilah's advice and not Grace not to say, "I told you so," when Delilah failed to follow hers. "I think you should look for her," Harper said. "What?" "Ella, I think you should look for her." Harper toyed with one of a dozen or so blonde braids that she had coiled around her head. Wearing a heavy, colorful makeup and a skin-tight green dress, she had an exotic Medusa look going on. Because she might have been worth something, Delilah nodded. "It's not just that. You said that she looked like the baby you thought you were going to have. It's a pretty bizarre thing, don't you think? You should find a doll that looks like your imaginary baby. What if she comes kind of a sign? What if she's some kind of a sign? You know, I don't believe in signs. Maybe you should." Delilah shrugged. They spent the rest of their visit talking about Harper's play and Harper's latest boyfriend when they reminded each other, as they always did, of the hell they escaped. "No, you cannot use the bathroom, not until 0945, when you're scheduled time to urinate," Harper intoned. She did great impressions. She had Gerald nailed. She could also merely mimic the alarm Gerald had used to signal every scheduled event in the household. The alarm was a sort of cross between a ring, a buzz, and a siren. Delilah always covered her ears when Harper felt compelled to impersonate it. Richard once asked Delilah why she and Harper needed to relieve their past regularly. She said, "It reminds us of how good things are now, and even when they seem not good, anything is better than living with Gerald." As it always did when Delilah and Harper were together, time disappeared when Delilah went out to her car. She realized she barely had the time to get home and get changed before her shift. "Why are you being so nice to me?" Delilah asked Nate when she arrived at her 2 to 10. She stood in front of the schedule posted in bulletin board in employee break room. Nate had scheduled Delilah for a 2 to 10 shift for the full week in a row. "You can't remember last time she worked the same shift for a week, and this shift was especially good right now because of the long as she went to bed within a couple hours of her ending the shift. She'd wake up completely in time for work. She wouldn't even need an alarm clock. She could put up with the evening rush in exchange for decent sleep." Nate looked up and doing his daily paperwork at the round table of the bulletin board. "It's my best entrance. I like it when you show up in time for work." "Well, it's easier to show up on time to work when my body can figure out what time it is," Delilah said. "Wuss, slave driver, whiner, meanie." Delilah started her shift and closed to a happy as she had been in some time. Work was going well when Nate was happy. When Nate was happy, things ran smoothly. Delilah had such a good time at work that she came back to the apartment in a good mood. She ate meatloaf and broccoli in a good mood, and she went to sleep in a good mood. The good mood disappeared, though, when she sat up in bed, muscles rigid, listening. Who was whispering? Someone was whispering. Delilah could hear indecipherable sibling words coming from where? Wide awake, she looked at the clock. It was 1:35 a.m. Again? Delilah strained around understanding the whispers, but they stopped. Now all she could hear were cars on the road. Where did some whispering come from? Ella. It had to be. Harper was right. Delilah should have looked for Ella. She should have checked, not because Ella might have been valuable or because she was a sign, but because apparently her alarm was still going off at 1:35 a.m. But Delilah didn't have time before she went to work. She checked today for sure, but couldn't believe Ella's alarm was so powerful she could hear it from here. Then again, wasn't Mary singing enough painful proof of the apartment's thin walls? Delilah lay back down in a closed eye. Ella's face filled her inner vision. Delilah opened her eyes. She sat up again. I'm not going to go to sleep until I find her, she thought. Delilah got up and pulled on sweats, stuffing her feet in a pair of slip-on clogs. She reached into her nightstand drawer for a flashlight. The dumpsters were well lit, but if Ella was particularly buried, Delilah might have been trouble spotting her. Throwing on an ugly multicolored cardigan Harper had crocheted for her, Delilah left her apartment, went down to the silent hallway and stairs, and exited the building. Outside the air was chilly, but the sky was clear. A few stars even managed to shine through the frothy glow of the urban night. Delilah paused outside in the building and looked around to be sure she was alone. She was. Pattering around the building, she headed for the dumpsters. The yawning green trash bin sat ugly and under the spotlights of the street lamps and the diner's floodlights. One of the two had been opened before she was closed. And when they had been closed was open, they all looked a little askew, like they had been moved around. Great, if they'd been moved, finding Ella would be like playing a game of hat trick. This might take longer than Delilah had envisioned. Glancing around again, Delilah shrugged. She might as well get it over with. The road to the middle dumpster was the one she thought she had thrown Ella into. Delilah lifted the lid, stood on her tippy toes, shone a light downside. The light landed in a mound of plastic garbage bags, a ratty old blanket, and a smattered of takeout containers. A sprinkling of empty cans. Her light didn't reveal the obnoxious smell of dirty diapers that Delilah was discovered as soon as she opened the lid. Delilah gently closed the lid, careful not to let it clang shut, and if Ella was in this dumpster, she was buried. Delilah decided she'd rather check the other two dumpsters first before diving into any of them. So she did her tiptoe light aiming routine first at the open one that she thought was also been open. She chucked Ella into the dumpster. The only thing that was set in the dumpster apart was the first one. Delilah looked at a couple dozen old paperbacks cascading over piles of stuffed garbage bags. Delilah was tempted to take one of them, a murder mystery, but it had a suspicious red stain on it. She didn't want to know what the stain was. The last dumpster Delilah checked was the one she was pretty sure she had been closed when she tossed away Ella, so she was surprised to find more than the same trash and no sign of Ella. Timid, Delilah turned off her flashlight and thought for a moment. Did she really have to get in these dumpsters to dig for Ella? She didn't know for sure if it was Ella waking her up, but all she knew was Mary singing some dumb middle-of-the-night song or a cat in heat. Yeah, why did she get awakened precisely at 1:30 a.m. both last night and tonight? Confidence? Coincidence? It was possible, wasn't it? Harper's once went through this period where she kept waking up at 3:33 a.m. And then she saw 333 everywhere for a couple months. Harper researched the number and found out it was some kind of spiritual sign. What if 135 is a spiritual sign just for Delilah? She snorted and turned her back on the dumpsters. Now that was just being silly. She headed back in front of the building. She's sick of the coincidence theory for now. It was easier and less smelly than assuming Ella was in the problem. The coincidence explanation got strained when Delilah woke up at 1:35 a.m. for the third night in a row. This time she was sure it had been the sound against her window. It had been scratching sound, a tapping? Whatever it was ominous enough that Delilah immediately grabbed her flashlight and aimed it at her blinds. Then after staring at her unmoving blinds for a minute, she got up with the courage to tiptoe across the room and look behind them. Nothing was at the window and down below in the parking lot. The dumpsters had moved in their positions and they'd been the night before. Delilah blew out air. She was going to have to search every one of those dumpsters. Should she wait for daylight? That would make it easier, wouldn't it? What if someone asked what she was doing? She'd answer truthfully. She'd throw out something she couldn't have thrown out. Delilah left the window and took a step toward her bed. She stopped. What day was it? Looking at all the weird shifts, Delilah rarely knew what day of the week it was. She thought for a second. Wednesday. Well, crap, she grumbled. The dumpsters were emptied on Thursday mornings. Early, if she waited, Ella would be gone. But wait, that was a good thing, right? If Ella was gone, her alarm clock wouldn't go off and wake up Delilah. Delilah didn't think Ella was worth anything, and she For sure, Emma was a fluke. There was no reason why Delilah would have climbed through a stinky trash. She could just let the garbage truck take her problem away. Delilah smiled and got back in bed. Thursday night, or rather Friday early morning, Delilah was open and to see 1:35 a.m. Again. She was immediately fully alert. Her heart beat loudly, fast, and steady like a driving beat on a timpani. This maniac pace was caused by only the time, and also reaction to Delilah's disturbingly strong feeling something was under her bed. Something was moving under her bed. But that couldn't be, could it? Delilah listened but didn't hear anything at first, but when she wondered what she was hearing, a scuttling sound on the carpet under her bed. She sat up and started to swing her left leg over to the side of the bed. She stopped. What if something was under there? It could grab her foot. She quickly pulling her foot back under the covers. Delilah reached out and turned the stand lamp. As soon as the room was lit, she leaned over and checked the floor all around her bed. She saw nothing but a tan cream-colored carpet she got in at a yard sale. She just imagined the sound, or something was still under her bed. Delilah reached the nightstand drawer. She grabbed her flashlight, turned it on, took a deep breath, then hung her head over the bed, shining the light beneath it. Nothing was there. Okay, this is getting crazy. It was 4 nights in a row. It had to be Ella. But the dumpsters had been emptied. Delilah crossed her legs and rubbed her arms. They were covered in goosebumps. What if the trash collectors couldn't completely empty the dumpsters? Or what if Ella fell out of the bin as it was being emptied? Delilah had to check. And she had to check now. She needed to know. So repeating their steps of the 2 nights before, Delilah went out of the dumpsters with her flashlight tonight, and they're all closed. They usually were after a trash pickup on Thursdays. Delilah approached the dumpsters in order, from right to left. She lifted the 3 lids and shined her light into 3 nearly empty bins. All she found were 2 bags of household trash, a bag of dirty diapers, and its corresponding nasty odor, a broken lamp, and a sad pile of old men's clothing. The only thing that could have been in Ella was a pile of clothing. So Delilah, holding her breath, hung over the edge of the dumpster clothing and used her flashlight to poke in the pile. Only thing under the clothes were more clothes. Delilah picked her way between the dumpsters and around the area surrounding them. She shined her flashlight in every dark nook and cranny, and she responded. No Ella. The doll was gone, for sure. She wasn't here. She couldn't be what was waking Delilah up at 1:35 a.m. So what was? Delilah woke up at 10:10 the next morning, and the first thing she did when she got up, besides covering her ears so she wouldn't hear Mary singing about dusting books, was call Harper and ask her to come back. She woke Harper up, but Harper never let the stuff that bother her. Sure, I'll be there in a bit, she chirped. When Harper arrived, she dropped the voluminous sack-style leather purse on the floor, flopped onto the love seat, and said, What's the problem? How do you know there is a problem? Delilah sat down. You don't normally ask me to come over. Oh yeah, Delilah was basically summoned her friend. That showed how rattled she was. I have a question, Delilah said. Must be a good one. Did you rescue Ella from the dumpster yesterday? What? Mary sang out. Because I feel fizzy, yay. Harper grinned. She liked Mary's songs. The doll, Ella, did you get her out of the dumpster? Harper ruffled her eyebrows. Why would I do that? You said that she'd be worth something. Well, she could, but she's your doll, not mine. If I was going to look for her, I'd tell you. Delilah rubbed her face with her hands. Yeah, she would have known that. Why are you asking? Did you look and not find her? Yeah, I looked, sort of. I didn't dig through the trash, but when the dumpsters were emptied. Okay, so Ella is gone. What's the big? Delilah couldn't tell her she was being waked at 1:35 a.m. every morning. She just told her about finding the doll and throwing it out, and it didn't work. She could think of the way to tell Harper about waking up at the same time for the nights in a row without sounding like she was overreacting. Besides, Harper would just talk about signs again if Delilah told her. Since I'm here, you want to go get some lunch? Harper asked. Well, Delilah waved goodbye for Harper with relief. She was glad lunch was over because in the middle of it she'd come up with an idea. Now if you can find that guy, pulling her car in the direction of her neighborhood, she run to cherry trees. She went to the search of the house where she found the garage sale. And Ella, she planned to get some answers on the doll from the doll's previous owners. Without signs to direct her, Delilah missed a turn and had to backtrack. Eventually, though, she pulled up in front of a Spanish-style house where she met Mumford and a furry chihuahua. But Mumford wasn't home. Nobody was. Even though Delilah could see from the street that their bare windows revealed vacant rooms in the house, she pulled an empty driveway and got out of her car. Installing the still, humid air, that wrinkled her nose at the smell that reminded her of rotting leaves. The neighborhood was unusually silent, but the only thing that she heard was a lone dog barking in the distance. This was the house, wasn't it? She studied it when turned and looked at the surrounding houses. Yes, this is it. Weird, she said out loud. But what was it? After all, the woman who had lived here had been having a garage sale. People did that before they moved, right? Delilah could read anything into the fact that there was no trace of anyone or anything in this place where she had found Ella. But why did it feel so pretentious? Hoping that she might stumble over some clue to where Mumford and the woman with spiky hair might have gone, Delilah circled the house and peeked in the windows. She found nothing. The house was completely empty, but for a single wad of paper towel on the counter in the kitchen. All Delilah got was an exploration was a creepy coil of unease and wrapped herself around her chest and didn't leave, even after she particularly ran for her car and drove away as fast as she could. Back in her apartment, Delilah ate enough cookies and milk to dissipate the disquiet she'd taken away from the empty house. Okay, she said, plan B. Setting up her laptop in her bed, Delilah got comfy as she checked her watch. She had about 45 minutes before she had to go to work. Plenty of time, she hoped. The next door, Mary was singing about mushrooms, but Delilah didn't care. She was on a mission. She figured that she could find information about Ella on the internet. She buzzed her head up with Ella doll. She was afraid to be too general. One of millions of results gave her information. Production of the Ella doll, Delilah discovered, was discontinued or disclosed reasons. Jumping off from the fact that she tried to find out more about the doll, she kept bumping into the same useless information or text instruction booklet she had already read. Running out of time, she began crying crazy searches. Haunted Ella doll, broken Ella doll, unique Ella doll, defective Ella doll, special Ella doll. These searches took her into a lot of pointless blogs that had been nothing to do with the Ella dog, but one of the searches for special Ella doll led her to an online ad posted by a user named Phineas who was trying to find one of the dolls. His ad referenced the special Ella doll and said he's willing to pay premium for the doll's energy, whatever that meant. Delilah checked her watch. She had to get to work. So much for her clever ideas. All they'd done was put her more edge than she knew already was. 3 more nights. 3 more 1:35 a.m. awakings. One night, Delilah had wakened certain that she was being watched. Every hair in her body was bristled like an antenna, and telling her she was under scrutiny. In her mind eye, she saw Ella's huge dark eyes boring into her soul. She lunged in her light. She thought something touched her arm, but the light revealed that she was alone. The next night, Delilah heard the rustling sound so faint that she could noticeable, but it still jolted Delilah from sleep. When she opened her eyes, the sound got louder. It was coming from her closet. As if something was rifling through her clothes, fumbling for her light, Delilah got up, strode to her closet door, and flung it open. The closet contained nothing but her clothes and shoes. The next night, a rapping sound woke up Delilah in her dream. The rapping came from the woodpecker. When she was awake, though, she realized the rapping was coming from the floor. Something was under the floorboards, tapping at the wood, as if trying to find a way out. Fighting hysteria, Delilah managed to get her light on. As soon as the room was lit up, the tapping stopped. Delilah was starting to get a little freaked out. She was so freaked out that she was having trouble sleeping. After her shift, Delilah was so exhausted she'd fall into bed, so go right to sleep, but then something would wake her at 1:35 a.m., some sound or sensation, something was beyond the periphery of Delilah's consciousness, would intrude into her sleep and drag her into wakefulness. Tonight, it was the sound of something that the wall made her an apartment and Mary's. It had a scratching sound, wasn't it? Or was it droning? Could it have been an alarm? No, Delilah didn't think so. She was pretty sure something was moving around the wall. Delilah turned the light on and looked at her empty bedroom, pulled her knees under her chest, and tried to rein in a galloping heart. There was a problem with all these nocturnal intrusions. All they sounded was something trying to get her, something sneaking up behind her, beckoning her in some way. Delilah was sure it was Ella. The doll was still nearby, as she had to be. It was functional. She just didn't know it functional in a helpful way. Alright. Well, now. We should be done with this book in, let's see. Oh, the episode after this one. Or not next episode, but the episode after the next episode. Or maybe I'll just do a short episode. Who knows? Anyways, I hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. Be polite, be efficient. I hope you enjoyed the reading, and I hope you're enjoying the readings. Don't think I'm reading your comments, by the way. I genuinely don't, because no one comments on my videos anyway. Oh, and funnily enough, this book ends on page 240, meaning in total there's going to be a total of 12 episodes. So that's cool. Anyways, I hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!